Hello everyone, I'm Cheryl Kane Piasecki with the Institute for Ethics in Government, and I want to welcome you to part one of a three-part introduction to public financial disclosure. Now, in public financial disclosure, as in many things in life, I think we need to begin by asking and answering for ourselves the question, why? Why do we do public financial disclosure? Now, I know for many of you who are probably new to financial disclosure, you're anxious to answer the questions, what is it that I have to do, and how is it that I have to do it? But for now, we're going to resist the temptation to answer those questions. Why? Because purpose is paramount. For your filers, understanding the purpose of public financial disclosure provides them with a context which may help them to respect a process that they otherwise feel or could feel is often quite intrusive. And it also provides them with some assurances that what you're asking them to do is more than just a paperwork exercise. For ourselves, certainly, understanding the purpose of public financial disclosure helps us to do that job better. But it also allows us to explain to leadership exactly how important our work is in supporting and protecting the mission and reputation of the agency. So, why do we do public financial disclosure? I think we want to begin by looking at the public aspect of this disclosure system. Part of the role, and I guess some would say the actual duty of the public in any democratic society, is to assist in holding government officials accountable, to ensure that government officials are carrying out their duties in the public's interest and not in their own personal interests. And to do that, obviously the public has to have access to information so that they can independently assess the personal, financial, and other interests of their leaders, and then decide whether they think those interests might actually conflict with the conscientious performance of those leaders' duties. This transparency in making the disclosures public is critical to government ethics. So one of the critical purposes of public financial disclosure is to increase transparency and thereby accountability to the public. Now, to facilitate this transparency, Congress enacted the financial disclosure provisions of the Ethics in Government Act. So the Ethics in Government Act is the statutory authority that dictates the requirements for public financial disclosure by senior government officials across all three branches of the government. The OGE Form 278E and the OGE Form 278T contain the information that the Act requires filers to disclose. But more than disclosure for the sake of transparency and accountability, the financial disclosure system is also a prevention tool. It's a tool that agencies use to identify potential conflicts of interest between a filer's official duties and the filer's private financial interests and affiliations, and then to remediate any potential conflicts that they identify before those can cause harm to the programs and operations of the agency. So this systematic review that we conduct at the agency level of these financial interests of both our current and our prospective employees, we use those reviews to mitigate ethics risks to our agency. In this respect, financial disclosure, the filing and review, is something of an ethics checkup. And the goals of that checkup, similar to other types of checkups we receive, are to prevent ethics issues where possible, and then certainly to fix them when we find them. So when your filers come to you, they've submitted their 278E or their 278T, they are in effect requesting your advice. What do you see? What do you think? Is there anything I should be worried about? And your review, and if necessary, any remediation that you think is required, are both a counseling moment and they're also an opportunity to educate your filers. So I would encourage you to capitalize on that. Improve your bedside manner, as it were, and make that opportunity count. Because this may be your employee's first and most lasting impression of ethics. So to perform this checkup in the broadest terms, you're going to have to know these two things. You're going to have some understanding of the work that the employee is going to perform for the government, the employee's duties, and then what the information that they actually disclose on the 278E or the 278T, which is what their private interests and affiliations are. Now, why do we need these two pieces of information? Because the primary conflict of interest statute, 18 U.S.C. section 208, is really a nexus test. It is, we look for the nexus between the employee's government work and any effect that that work could have on the employee's personal interests and affiliations. So if you don't have both of these pieces of information, you simply can't assess the potential for conflict, which basically means that you can't do the checkup. Now, the primary conflict of interest statute is one of the primary concerns and objectives of our substantive reviews. But the actual conclusion that the agency must reach through its review of the public forms is more far-reaching. By signing the form, the agency ethics official is concluding that the filer is in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Part of this conclusion involves concluding that the filer has materially complied with the reporting requirements of the Ethics in Government Act and its implementing regulation, 5 CFR 2634. And we make that determination obviously based upon the information that the employee has disclosed on the form. This is the technical review aspect of your review process, and you're reviewing for legal sufficiency with the disclosure requirements under the Act. Your substantive review includes all of the criminal conflict of interest statutes, including obviously 18 U.S.C. section 208, but it's also going to involve making sure that the employee is in compliance with the standards of ethical conduct and any agency-specific regulations that you may have, including any prohibited holdings restrictions. Our goal in preventing ethics issues where possible is not just one of preventing the violation of law and the consequences that ensue for the individual filer. We have an obligation to understand and also to be able to explain to not only our filers but our agency leadership what harms we are actually hoping to prevent, harms to the agency and to the government. So the harms we're trying to prevent are bias in decision making, which can lead to a loss of credibility and a loss of public trust. We risk mission failure if we have employees who are engaging in either criminal activity or even in non-criminal, unethical activity that can lead to investigations and legal challenges that derail our ability to successfully achieve our mission. In fixing what we find requires that we be fully familiar with and fully prepared to use all of the appropriate remedies at our disposal. These remedies can help us to protect the agency from reputational risk and prevent harm to mission. So coming back full circle, in every conversation we have with our filers, and certainly in every review we perform, the purpose of public financial disclosure should always be front of mind. Why? Because it provides meaning and context to what we ask of our employees and to the work that we perform as ethics officials. Next up, in part 2 of the introduction, we'll discuss how best to prepare you for your public financial disclosure roles. And we're going to begin with the essentials, your tools.